Sorcerers, welcome. Today we're talking about part 2 of the Design-A-Card contest, where you submitted your own custom cards for us to take a look at, with the top 6 sites being chosen to win a blank sample card. Now, the main idea behind this was to unlock your creativity and see the cool ideas you have, and it gives a chance for the design team to talk about their process and thoughts on designing cards, using your cards as an example. Now, there were over 140 submissions, and the design team, they really spent a long time, agonizing over which ones to pick. I'm laughing because they really did. It took a long time. So thank you so much for joining us, Sean, Mike, and Rafa. And I'm really excited. I had a lot of fun talking with you about the spells. Let's jump in and talk about some of these submissions for custom-made sites. And let's kick it off. Let's start off strong here with looking at Troy. Now, Mike is our resident historian here. Can you talk us through your thoughts on this card?
History cards, of course, just like the compass of the previous episode, will definitely get me any sort of history references. So I loved seeing this. I love seeing the old school art as well to kind of go with it. But the concept of the reason why I chose this card was that it takes a historical element, boils it down to its simplest kind of little points, and then delivers it via sorcery. So this is what I quite love about this one. It's like, okay, so you've got this Genesis thing. I'm going to give you a site. Isn't that great? It's going to be awesome. It's going to give you mana. It's going to give you, well, in this case, threshold. Enjoy. Nothing bad's going to happen. And then all of a sudden, like a pile of foot soldiers is like plop out and go wreck stuff. And I love the fact that they've got charge. They can immediately just like surprise attack. It's kind of a funny. It could be an interesting finisher in sight form, which is kind of fun. There's a lot of shenanigans you can get up to, just like the Greeks. And so there's a lot of it's all bundled up in a nice, quick, kind of easy Genesis ability. One-liner, which we're always looking for. I mean, we're by necessity with sites. They all need to be one-liner, but it's got everything. So well done for this one.
Yeah, and also just to add to what you said, it's a classic story, right? And maybe should we do maybe like a monument for the horse, like an artifact, it might look easy when you look at a card like that was like so well designed, but there could have been like multiple iterations or multiple possible like versions that we could have, like that someone could have gone for. And I completely agree with you, Mike. Like that was great. Like it was so clean. Read this one-liner first side, which is not always like the easiest thing, and just like. Okay, how and also the fact that it's also fire has the idea of like betrayal that fits the elemental identity well. Yeah. Also, fire combining well with earth and as an element when you're doing like the mortals, like the foot soldier strategy. How to make it even more fire? How to give them charge, right? Like so there's so much going on. It's kind of maybe short there and might not go unnoticed, but it's super sweet.
And what about looking at Dense Forest, Sean, as our next one, a site of elite growth? What stood out to you about this one?
Yeah, again, this was, as the other guys said, like a pretty simple, straightforward ability that would fit on one line. I think maybe even could drop this down to being an exceptional site, but very straightforward, thematic, has an ability that's going to affect how people maneuver on the battlefield, and might have implications during like a ever-evolving meta where like airborne stuff starts getting played a lot. Then there's a card here that could start getting slotted into decks to protect against it, in the same way that lots of people start playing Roots of Yggdrasil, and so more people start including bedrocks in their deck, or people are playing a lot of Infiltrate, so Watchtowers start showing up a lot more. It becomes this tool in the toolbox of your Atlas that people have that option that they can start slotting it in if these particular threats start becoming really prevalent in their particular meta.
I like that it also has the ability where airborne minions can still fly over it. You're not shutting them down entirely. You're not.
Yeah.
It's not like full airborne hate, right? It just means that they try to fly down into the forest and like smack, like they can't get at somebody. But
Too many branches.
Too many branches. But I really love that it doesn't. It takes a very specific thing and incorporates that into its flavor while allowing other things to happen. Makes it so it's not so oppressive.
Yeah, like leaving that room for counterplay is like so important. And we've seen like some sites where they maybe are a little too oppressive in what they do. And I completely agree, Mike. I felt that was so sweet. It's like, okay, you can attack here, but you can fly over, maybe try to get somewhere else and do your airborne shenanigans. So yeah, pretty sweet design. Also fits Earth perfectly. It's like Earth as an emblem. How do I deal with airborne minions? It can be a little tricky. Yeah, that's great. Love it.
And you can imagine the stories playing out, right? Like you have this in the realm, and you've got some foot soldiers or something who are hiding in the forest while there's some Gaia hippogriffs circling over here, waiting for them to leave so they can swim down and cowering down there.
It's also doesn't apply to avatars in this wording as well. So it's not, again, like an avatar's too big. I guess that you'll still be able to hit it. But I like the idea that it's, again, from a balance point of view, you're making sure that this is a minion on minion issue, and not including avatars. Well done, well designed.
Yeah.
All right. Let's move on to the Smolder ashfields. Rafa, can you champion this site?
Yeah, super sweet, somewhat like simple design. So like doing, I don't know, like ground breaking or is that the term? Anyways,
yeah,
it's not doing like absolutely crazy things, but it is super sweet and clean. Also like thematic. I do like the theme here that I like this land is so like dead and it's so like an anti-life that like you can't, like water just completely dries up and like the little cannot be flooded, which also fits fire with the whole like drought idea and like a little bit of that how it opposes water in some ways. And I know like Earth does a little bit of that too, but that is also part of fire's thing. And also again, just also mechanically quite fitting to the element in terms of like pinging things there. Which for fire is great, right? Like all you want to do is like make those power thresholds a little lower so that you can actually finish them off. So just gameplay wise, super, super sweet. And also creates this cool little story where if something starts there and ends the turn there, it's going to be a lot of pain. So I really like that it has a little bit of that double trigger there. Still within your turn, so you as the controller of that card still is the one responsible like for keeping track of what's happening, how to better make use of that card. So all in all, like super sweet and cool design.
It's got that cool narrative of like the building heat kind of wearing things down, where you could run through this thing and kind of like hot step your way across and you'll be fine. But if you stay there for any length of time, you're going to get worn down.
Yeah.
Not where you want to fight a phoenix, you know? Well, speaking of, let's move from the hotter temperatures to something a little bit colder here. And Rafa, why don't you cool us down here with the Glacial Break?
Yeah, so have a glacier, you at heat, it breaks. Jokes aside, but yeah, that's also another really kind of sweet and somewhat straightforward design, really playing to the element strengths, right? So if like fire's trying to combine damage to clear minions that are in play, waters definitely try to like flood sites and expend their body of waters for stuff like Undyne and just like waterbound minions and whatnot. This one does it also like permanently, so it's actually like some of the weakness that floodplains has. Where like, okay, you have flexibility to go in all directions, and you can like pick your own sites and change as you please. But like at the end of the day, on your opponent's turn, that pirate ship's gonna be disabled and not in a good position. So So yes, I like the story here as well. I think that's also to Mike's point earlier, like the narrative that you can tell with this one is super sweet. So yeah.
Like what are those? Are those little ice things or waves? Or one of them looks a little distraught or angry. There's like all different emotions going on there.
There's some inspiration coming from like Wrath of the Sea and other artwork of its kind, where the waves often kind of depict or they'll have faces in the foam and that kind of thing. So I think that's part of that theme going for.
It's three Undines being shoved to the side, and they're just not super happy about that.
No, I think Undine would love this card.
Oh yeah.
Well, it's the person up at the top going, "Whoops!" Little guy up on the hill.
Yeah.
He just planted a flag and then like started to crack.
But do you have a flag? Meanwhile, going from the natural to the supernatural, Baba Yaga's hut. Sean, well, what have we got here?
This is part of that like sorcery taking a lot of inspiration from mythology of various different places. Baba Yaga's hut being a very well-known kind of, I don't know, would you call it an entity or a location? I mean, here it's specifically represented as a site, which offers some interesting mechanical opportunities. Because being a traveling hut, the ability here kind of really sells that, where you can kind of load things into the hut and then taking advantage of the slightly abstract distances of the, between sites on the grid, where you might have a couple of villages over here and then the hut on this side. But if the hut goes for a walk, now it's on the other side of the village, you can kind of play into that story a bit here. And then I do like the fact that they've specifically made this so you can only swap it with empty sites. So it's not too powerful and just like, I'm going to swap with the site that's got all of your units on it who would be defending over here, but now I'm going to throw them away because the hut is in between. So that's a nice kind of little tweak there to keep the power under control. But you can still use the hut and load it up with your own stuff and then have it walk over and disgorge a bunch of units from a new location.
I like the three little skulls too there, maybe the remnants of whatever entities were in the previous pictures. Water.
Yeah.
Right, and then the Bifrost. We're on a journey here. Mike, a unique bridge of hopes and dreams.
Yeah, I like this one. It's a bit of a theme going. You can kind of tell with some of these that we've kind of picked out. There's a great thing about legend and myths and stuff like that, and how the ancient peoples used their legends and myths to create the world, to remember the world and like how things happen and stuff like that. So this is one of the things I love about sorcery is it's another way for those stories to kind of get new purchase. And the Bifrost is a great one. It really links back to the Norse mythology, and you get this kind of this interesting kind of connection to both myths, but also our very own grid system. I keep going back to this grid system. I love the fact that you can now take 2 steps away from it. So it's kind of like a way to kind of escape something or redeploy. Again, it's very tactical. It's got very good, feels very tactical, very, very powerful. 2 steps is a long ways in the realm. But it's a one-way trip. So once you're there, if you want to try to use it again, you got to slog all the way back to the original spot. So it's quite an interesting kind of tie into mythology, and as well as kind of leverages the grid system in a very unique way. Offers some new tactical openings for people to use in their game. So yeah, it's a good one.
And trade routes, Rafa. I love the kind of hand-drawn sketch of this one.
Yeah, this one is pretty cool too. I do like the pencil drawing that was kind of almost this very first sketch before the actual art, but also kind of a cool cool way to see how we can kind of represent similar concepts in different ways. So like we have something like Crossroads in the game, which is kind of doing the idea of like picking a path or choosing a path by messing with your atlas as a sign of the direction you're going to, where here it's playing more to the grid and how you can better safely navigate those routes. This is also one where, and there might be, I'll say this, there might be a little bit too much going on here because it's like doing that in different directions. And now with some of the rules change where you can use some of that and move in for defense, I could see that becoming a little overwhelming. But it's still something that is, I think, in many ways inspiring. And sometimes that's how concepts begin, right? It's like we have this idea. It's like, oh, that's awesome. And we play. It's like, okay, that was too much. Like, how can we tone it down? How can we streamline things? So it's a cool card. It's a cool concept. I like it.
Yeah, I quite like it from a tactical point of view. I like when I play a lot of war games and stuff like that. There's always the questions of like, what are the best routes into the battlefield, right? So this feels that niche, that narrative niche of like, I can use this site to kind of better deploy my troops. It might be like maybe you're play it on your side in like an Earth site where like you've got local knowledge of the roads and you use that to your advantage to gain access to the enemy attacks and stuff like that. So that's cool. It feels an interesting tactical narrative blend of a point.
I can envision like a thematic deck of mortals, right? And this is in their sights of like how are they getting to the battlefield from their villages down the trade routes to the crossroads.
It's all about logistics, right? That's what they say. It's not always the most exciting part of battle, but it's the decisive edge.
But you pair this up with things like your wandering pilgrim, and you suddenly, if you want to get to the other corner quickly, you can take the trade route.
Yeah,
it's great. I love that.
I also like the fact that this works in both directions because, like Mike was saying, there's other ways you could take this where maybe it's secret pathways that only your troops know. But in this case, it being a trade route, that feels like public knowledge, and so your opponent being able to utilize this at the same time as you are actually feels really appropriate here.
Yeah.
And then we've got the Burgeoning Isle, a unique site of rampant growth. We just mentioned recently, roots of Yggdrasil decks. Mike, what do we got here? Maybe it kind of plays into your nautical theme a little bit too.
It does a little bit. First of all, the art looks great. It looks like some of those, like a pen and ink version of those Japanese paintings and stuff like that. I quite like the idea of the of a site that kind of duplicates itself. So if you've wiped the world clean through either a Yggdrasil wipe or some other crazy thing, Crater Eyes or something like that, where it's just like now you've got like a palette to work from, or maybe you're running a Geomancer deck or something like that, where you've got a bunch of, that's more rubble, but it's
your own Scorched Earth would be great.
Yeah,
because destroy your own things to kill the invaders, but then your Burgeoning Isle just gets to duplicate itself.
Yeah. Or you take it offensively, right? You start destroying. If you can destroy their sites, then you can start moving into their territory. And then the fact that it kind of duplicates itself, so it's like a slow kind of regrowth and things. So it feels, it's got an interesting kind of aspect to it, which I really like to would love to see to further explored. Like one of the things I think would be really interesting is if you could link it somehow to rubble as well as destroyed sites, it'd be kind of interesting. So if there's just rubble there, something could grow out of it. That'd be a neat way to kind of. You could have an interesting combo with like Isle Leviathan, which gets up and moves away, and then maybe a new Isle Leviathan grows in its place, or something. It's not really, but yeah, it has a lot of potential.
Design space, though, right, and explore.
Yeah.
And speaking of exploring design space here, the Void Well, a unique void site of no return. So like almost sci-fi-ish, but what do we got here, Rafa?
I like this one I think was also like just very sounding, I guess, like from a balance perspective, and also in a way also thematically. Because like, okay, what's the most anti-element thing the void, I guess, like that hates matter and hates the elements. And so I thought it was kind of a cool way to have a powerful effect that like hits threshold and possibly from a balance and gameplay perspective and counterplay punishes maybe decks that are a little gritty in their threshold requirements. So I do like how we can utilize certain cards like that, and sites are usually a really good home for certain effects like counter effects like that, because the deck building cost is a little lesser compared to like adding maybe a card in your spell book that literally doesn't do anything. And there was also like some interesting choices where, okay, this is hurting the opponent, but it's also hurting your sites potentially. So you also have to play into the void and maybe allow it to be your master in some way. And there's also, again, that cute little thing like void side, which is like, hey, maybe in the future we could have more void sites, and those would not lose their threshold, right? And again, just playing to the grid, the concept of adjacency and site placement, which is, I think, something that a lot of players appreciate about the game.
Something about the art gives me like I'm maybe having a hard time placing it, but I feel like I'm seeing like sci-fi targeting computer. Like, I just need to shoot these photon torpedoes down this exhaust pipe.
It makes me immediately think of the old Treehouse of Horror episode where Homer gets 3D.
Yes, I love it.
He gets sucked into one of these.
Great art.
Like and the little threshold symbols, like being sucked into this black hole. Like, it's funny.
And speaking of great art as well, pools of reflection here. So let's reflect on this one, John.
Yeah, I think we all had this in our top 6. I think we all had a very similar reaction, because I think Kevin, who designed this, we were all kind of aware of who he was, and then like looking down through. And I know this is what happened for me. I was like looking down through a bunch of the sites and going, oh, this pools of reflection is pretty cool. And then looking over and going, oh, it's Kevin's. And the effect here is, again, something playing to the grid. It's something interesting that could be used offensively or defensively. You definitely build a deck around taking advantage of this. And yeah, very well presented. Obviously, he's got some good artwork in there, and the title and pipeline and everything all kind of feel like they fit together. They've got kind of that sorcery aesthetic.
Yeah, something I really like about this one too is just that it has a little bit of that gate to no and vibe from the spell video, where it's like the possibilities, also like the compass, right? It's like, okay, there's some more obvious things like just preventing projectiles from coming your way or deflecting them, but it's like, how can you use that to your advantage? So, and even the way that was sort of like with effects of the past years, so I think it's also trying to play into like rolling boulder and some other things that aren't necessarily just projectiles. So like trying to expand the scope a little bit, which I think is great. And also it does something that I thought was interesting. That is like, it's like one of those cards that has this effect. Okay, this has to be in the game. It's like, hey, like, why haven't we done that before? And then it's like one of those really iconic abilities that it also, at least for me personally, made me think, okay, is this the best home for this, right? It's like, should this be a hall of mirrors instead? And like, when the effect is that good, right? Like, your design is that sweet, it actually even sometimes makes us like take a step back and talk more about it, discuss it further, because it's like, okay, we want to deliver in that one, right? We want it to be as sweet as it can possibly be. But I mean, it's amazing. It's great.
Yeah, one of the things I love about it is just the potential of, like what you're saying, going back and start thinking about, like, okay, so how, like, is an effect like projectiles or something like that, or how now can I go back and look at my entire collection with this card now in mind? And one of the things I was thinking about this one is it's elite, so you can take 2 of them, which means that you could like set up like a prism situation where you're like ping ping or something, like and you can kind of redirect redirect stuff around your own guys, or yeah, you could have a lot of fun with that, right? Like you get with just one card, you might be able to get an interesting Rube Goldberg machine going in your deck, which is always a fun little thing, a fun little payoff. Even if you're on the receiving end of it, it's like, what just happened here? Okay, let's have a look. I've got these 2 pools of reflection. This thing comes barreling through here. It goes ping, 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 and then I get eight ball in the corner pocket. So it's like it's a great design for that, right? Like it sends you back to your collection, starts thinking about what things you could do with it. Rafa's point about like being a really good design opens up some other more questions. It doesn't, a lot of times card designs don't necessarily end with a good idea. And like they need to be refined, they need to be thought about a little bit more, because there might be some other ways to even enhance it even further and stuff like that. So there's just this is one of those great examples of a great site that kind of fires on all cylinders.
And this card had some beautiful art, and there were a lot of other cards that also had beautiful art. We weren't able to talk about all the cool submissions that we had in this video. There were so many. And if you want to check out those other submissions, we've got a link to the Facebook group with the post pin there that you can check out yourself. If you go through those, check out all the other cards that were there, and give some likes to the ones that really catch your eye. Like I said, there's so many. It was really hard to go through all of these. And these were just the ones that we were able to pull out, for our top picks and our honorable mentions. But I think everyone who submitted something, there was, great job. And there were some really fantastic other pieces there that we weren't able to talk about today.
It was like another 100 submissions or something that we weren't able to cover.
It's absolutely amazing and super, really just cool to see the enthusiasm of the community and their desire to create and engage with sorcery in the way that they have. So let's dive into the final picks here, and we'll be reaching out to you through Facebook to send you your blank sample cards. Pools of Reflection, Troy, Baba Yaga's Hut, Glacial Break, Smolder Ashfields, and Dense Forest. So thank you to everyone who came and participated in the Facebook group's Design-A-Card Challenge. We really appreciate all the effort that you put in there. And then, that's just a small taste of the community's ideas, but we also got to see some insight from our design team, Sean, Mike, and Rafa, about how they approach cards and their thoughts on them. So thank you guys so much for giving your feedback on how cards are designed and helping go through all these awesome submissions and pull out some really great ones to talk about. So thanks everyone for tuning in. Make sure you check the link in the comments below. Visit all of our sorcery socials. And in the meantime, best of luck contesting the realm.